What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of National Pastime. John Toaster and J-Rob here. And we've got your championship weekend preview. Hell yeah. Let's do this thing. We've also got a lot of coaching news to get through as well. So we'll probably start there. What do you think? Just dive right into it?
Let's get to the Bears. Fuck it.
No, let's hold off on the Bears. I think the most interesting coaching hire is where we should start, and that is with the Broncos. J-Rob hiring the Packers offensive coordinator, though not play caller, Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett pretty well respected around the league, especially in that Packers locker room. So I guess the big question is, does Aaron Rodgers follow him?
I don't know. Tom Brady didn't follow Josh McDaniels, so I feel like this is just a retread that may crash and burn just like the last time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're really going to compare. Okay, sure. Why not? What do you think, Josh? How do you feel ultimately about the Rodgers situation? Do you think that Hackett, I mean, you have to think that getting Hackett improves their chances here, right?
Oh, 100%. I'm definitely excited, especially since for a long time they've gone heavy defensive coordinator, whether it was like Vance Joseph, Vic Fangio, and I'm already drawing a blank on the two coaches between them. But yeah, it's good to see they got an offensive guy. It does make me a little concerned that he never really called plays. So it's like, okay, is it ultimate your play design, or were you more just kind of like a good middleman between Rodgers and LaFleur?
You might not have to call plays though to be effective here. Like to that point, he's probably, and I think we mentioned this with Leftwich in the last episode, he's probably the third most important person as far as play calling goes within that Packers offense anyway, behind LaFleur and Rodgers. And if he is the kind of guy that is just a respected person in the room, can be the CEO type, I'm really curious to see how he builds out his staff too, because it sounds like he's going to poach some Packers assistants as well. And maybe that also continues to drive Rodgers in that direction. But I wouldn't necessarily lean on the fact that he's going to call plays unless you've heard otherwise that he's for sure going to do that.
I haven't heard anything. I just, with not really knowing who he wants as his OC, with what I know right now, I'm just assuming that he might be calling the plays. Yeah. Just for the love of God, please don't bring over the special teams coach. Like, just leave him in Green Bay. We'll be okay there. We don't need him. But I do think, especially with the rumors that Aaron Rodgers might even go to Denver last offseason, before any of this was even like a coaching vacancy was even there. The fact that there were rumors there leads me to believe that there's a good chance that now he can poach Rodgers. I do think it's a pipe dream to get Rodgers and Devontae Adams, though. You were mentioning the Green Bay's cap space. It doesn't look great. So there is a chance that they might not be able to franchise tag him.
I think Adams is gone if Rodgers is gone, personally.
And do you think that's the Green Bay's like because they can't do it? Or do you think they would just kind of be like, hey, man, good luck. It was a good run. Like, thanks for being a great receiver. Best of luck.
I don't know, Toaster, what your thoughts are here.
I think it's similar to the Allen Robinson situation last year, where if they don't get him a quarterback, then he's not signing that franchise tag. So that's the only leverage that Adams will have. He's a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver at this point, but still has enough left in the tank to be viable. And quite frankly, the Packers have to clear a lot of space just to franchise tag him. So I think that it is either a sign and trade or a tag and trade situation. But if Rodgers isn't there, then they're going to have a disgruntled Michael Thomas-like wide receiver who just decides to ultimately probably not show up.
Yeah.
As far I feel bad for Matt LaFleur. Kind of. Like, you go from having like just a stud roster, kind of letting the team run itself, and then now like you very well could get, like, people might think he's a fraud purely because now he doesn't have one of the best quarterbacks, making him uplifting
Jordan Love's not one of the best quarterbacks?
What's up?
Jordan Love's not one of the best quarterbacks?
I mean, if you're asking Packers fans, they're all convincing themselves that Denver's going to trade for Jordan Love, which I think is some of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like,
we could probably trade him for a basketball player. They've got the same level of like fucking jump pass going on.
Jump pass? Is
Yeah,
that didn't yeah. I mean, with the Rodgers situation though, he's gonna have so he's under contract, right? So his options are either if he doesn't want to play for the Packers, retire or force a trade. And I mean, not that there wouldn't be teams lining up to get him, but teams were realistically, they're good enough to where he would want to go there and all that. The Broncos are for sure on that short list, but the Broncos play in the AFC West. Does Rodgers, and we talked about it a little bit last time, does Rodgers want to go and bang it out with Mahomes and Herbert 4 times a year and potentially finish third in that division
and
no matter
still make
what?
the playoffs, because that's what the Raiders did. So
and that was my first thought, was expanded playoff changes that division.
Yeah.
Sorry, Toaster.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Just fucking stay in your lane. No, I'm kidding. No, that's if Carr hadn't made the playoffs, and I mean the Chargers and Raiders were right there, right? One of them was going to get in the playoffs. That means that 3 teams are getting in from that division at this point in time, or 3 teams are possible to get in from that division, and I think they instantly jump to at least second best in that division if you've got Rodgers there. No disrespect to Herbert, but I think that there is a level of experience in closing out games and being consistent that Rodgers has over Herbert still at this point in time, and would trust him to be able to get it done.
But if you look at the situation in the NFC, if he stays, if he stays with the Packers, they're obviously the NFC North favorite. Yeah, exactly. You're guaranteed to make the playoffs. And the NFC, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but look at the quarterbacks. Who are the top quarterbacks in the league? The majority of them are in the AFC. It's like, even if you make the playoffs with the Broncos, the potential that you get bounced in the first round by either a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, it's that much higher than
Tannehill, you left off.
Yeah, sorry, forgot about Tannehill there. But the NFC presents a much easier path to the Super Bowl. I guess it's really who the fuck knows what his motivation is? I don't personally care to get into the psychoanalysis of this guy at this point. I've heard way too much about his thoughts on things this year.
Woodley over his eyes on this one.
No, I'm not going to pull the Woodley over his eyes, but his motivation here is the biggest catalyst. What is it? Is it to say fuck the Packers and just go somewhere? Is it to win a Super Bowl? Is it to cause as much havoc as possible? He really does what he ultimately decides is the motivating factor for him as he looks forward in his career, because obviously he can still play. I mean, hell, he might win the MVP. It's really going to have a huge domino effect on all this stuff. I think I'm leaning that he probably will end up on the Broncos, just given the Hackett situation. And
I was going to say, was that the play? Is Hackett the hire because that was their best chance to compete immediately by having Hackett pull Rodgers, their offensive line coach?
Oh, it's got to be
Devontae Adams. I think that was the play by the Broncos, quite frankly, right? And you let it play out regardless now that he is your actual hire, but that was probably the major motivating factor to getting this done quickly.
For sure. And it's a risky move, though. I mean, if it doesn't pan out, not that Hackett can't still be a good head coach, but did you limit your pool of head coaches because of Aaron Rodgers, who frankly might say, fuck this and just retire, right?
Yeah, and I mean, nobody can hack it with Drew Lock at quarterback, so they're going to need to address that position regardless. Yeah. But to me, this was the play. They are saying, let's go, just like we've had a couple of, Patriots South or Patriots West, whatever you want to call them. This, to me, looks like Packers South?
Denver Packers, baby.
I mean, everything's south of Green Bay at this point.
So I'm going to put on my tin hat here. I think Rodgers was purposely being an asshat all this year to drive down the Packers' leverage. Because if you're a team that's kind of in shambles, you don't want to take on the circus. And now that you've got the rumors spreading even before the season started that he might be in Denver, you get Hackett. He was an asshole. There's people that don't like him. You lose a little bit of leverage maybe in trades because the team might not want to take him. That maybe this was the plan all along, and they were just trying to find ways to give up less to get the same. Because now they could get away with just giving them a couple first-round picks, a couple second-round picks, and calling it good. And if that was the play, and this is like the longest con in like NFL history, that would be fucking wild.
Well, the strange part is that this kind of reminds me of the Rob Gronkowski situation, where the Patriots trade him away to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they had no leverage at this point. And there was a handshake, wink and nod agreement that Rodgers was going to be able to demand a trade if he ultimately wanted to at the end of the year. I think the Packers' plan was for him to make it to the NFC Championship again, see that they've got something that's viable. And that last loss changed everything, in my opinion. I thought I was 95% sure Rodgers was back until that last game. And now I'm 95% sure that he wants to be gone, be it through retirement or through trade. But he is in the driver's seat because he doesn't have to play. And the Packers' hand is forced a little bit more by having their best offensive counterpart to Aaron Rodgers that they need to make a decision on before, February 22nd to March 8th. And if Rodgers is still playing that game, then they can't build a team around him. They don't know where they're at. And I think that means that they move him for cheaper. So to your point, J-Rob, there is a little bit of a long con here, but really it was just a lack of leverage by the Packers at this point.
But even with that lack of leverage, I mean, the going rate for even a marginally good quarterback these days is 2 firsts, right? Like, is there any way that he doesn't go for 3 first rounders minimum? Like, even if nothing else is tacked on, I mean, that to me seems like it would be the floor. If you're the Packers, you say, hey, you're still under contract for 1 more year, fucking retire if you want, right? We'll take that cap space and do what we need to do. I don't see a scenario where this drastically lowers his trade value to where the Broncos or another team gets like a steal, right? They're not like flipping a 2nd round pick for him.
Oh yeah. I think even this is going to sound steep, but I would still even be happy if they gave up 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for the next 2 years and just called it good. Their defense is pretty much ready to go. They're not losing too many guys, and their offense, like pretty much if you put a quarterback into their situation, it instantly is going to elevate whatever you have. Your offensive line is going to get better because he's going to get the ball out. And I think you could go Rams style where it's like, hey, we're getting rid of this picks because
push the chips in.
Yep. Because his window's 2-3 years. It's going to be the same as Peyton. We're going to be awful when he's gone if we get him. And it's just rinse and repeat once again. So yeah, I think they should just go all in and do what it needs to take. Like give him what it takes and make it work. And Patton seems like the guy that wants to make it work.
Does Nathaniel Hackett need an intern too? Is that why this is a we situation right now? You're leaving us?
I mean, I'll call plays. The play will just be like, go do something crazy.
Well, as in typical fucking Aaron Rodgers style, he's dominated the media here. This is about the coaching staff, I thought. We were talking about coaches. Talking about coaches.
Yeah, I know. Fuck that guy. Okay. Well, let's move on. Let's get to the Bears here. So the Bears were one of a few teams that had both the GM and head coach positions open. They went ahead and hired Kansas City's executive director of player personnel, Ryan Poles, as their general manager. And then Poles conducted 3 interviews, second interviews with eventually Matt Eberflus, who got the job, Dan Quinn, and his name is escaping me right now, but the old Detroit head coach, somebody help me out here. Jim Caldwell.
Did they really? They went for wow.
So they conducted polls, basically got the job and told the McCaskies, like, I'm interviewing these 3 guys, stay out of it. It was like a stipulation of him taking the job. So he interviews them, and a day later ends up selecting Matt Eberflus, which was today. Thursday.
I
And
was expecting a polarizing pick from polls, but no, this one just was kind of meh,
yeah,
to quote you, right?
yeah, it's very, very meh. I'm not upset about it. I'm not excited necessarily about it. I definitely like Dan Quinn looked like the betting favorite there for a minute, and I prefer this over Dan Quinn. I think you look at Eberflus's situation as a whole, and the fact that he's a first-time head coach, I think provides a little bit more upside, especially if you're going the defensive head coach CEO route. But ultimately, like, was this the right move if you're trying to build around Justin Fields? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna have to go back and watch Hard Knocks again, see what his actual input. No, I think to me this is something where it's almost a good thing in a way, because then you can find somebody that you bring in that's basically dedicated to the development of Foles. I think this is the detriment of a lot of head coaching hires, is you assume because they're good at special teams or defensive coordinating or offensive coordinating that they're ready and able to run an entire team. And that's not really the case. What you need is a great leader, someone that's very organized and can manage the situation. And now you can bring somebody in specifically, probably from the Chiefs, because I think that you just like pick from the Chiefs if you're the Bears at this point, right? You know, Matt Nagy. Now you go with Ryan Poles and Eric Bieniemy. I don't know if he just flops over to be offensive coordinator for Justin Fields, but the point is now you have somebody that you can just say your job is to develop this one individual, and Eberflus doesn't have to worry about that side of the ball. Just like I think
Yeah.
Bill Belichick stays out of most of the offensive side of the ball with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, I think that the biggest criticism here was, okay, let's say Eberflus is good and he hires a good staff. Well, if that offensive coordinator is worth a shit, he's going to potentially leave for a head coach job soon. And I think I saw Big Cat tweet this today, but he was like, look, if the Bears are in a situation where their offense was so good and Justin Fields looks so good that their offensive coordinator gets hired away, fucking sign me up for that, right? Like that's a good problem to have. And I understand like not wanting to cycle through offensive coordinators with a young quarterback and all that, but I think there's routes for them to go here where the short list of names.
Are you disappointed that Ben McAdoo's off of that list?
Oh my God, yeah. So
Damn,
disappointed.
I'm so sorry.
Fucking Panthers, man. Stealing all the good offensive coaches, stealing all the good quarterbacks. Goddamn Panthers. Yeah. No, but I think if you look at the early rumor is that Eberflus wants to take a hard look at the Shanahan coaching tree. And I think there's another element here too that will basically bring in candidates. So Trace Armstrong, he is an executive agent. So he's an agent for executives and coaches. And he's a former player. He's a former Bear. He was actually rumored a few months ago to potentially take over the president of football ops position for the Bears. Well, he basically has now, because both of his clients are now the GM and head coach of the Chicago Bears. Trace Armstrong also happens to represent Joe Brady, who, as we know, is a free agent. So I would think he's on that short list. Other names, if you're looking at the Shanny tree that I've heard, Mike McDaniel, who's the 49ers OC, but not their play caller because of Shanny.
And if
I think
ever have a chance to look up Mike McDaniels, fucking fun. I'm sorry. He's just not like, if you think about football dudes, it's not Mike McDaniels, but he's just out there to have a good time. And
he's brilliant.
Yeah.
He's fucking brilliant.
One of the funniest things I read was someone tweeted being like, Mike McDaniels will only take head coaching offers from places with legalized pot.
That's probably true. But if you look at somebody like Joe Brady, right, who has to repair his reputation and is still very young. Mike McDaniel, never been a full-time play caller and is still very young. I think those are guys that you could guarantee you would have at least 2 years with. Also, they've been connected to, again, the Chiefs tree, but Mike Kafka, who's the Chiefs QB coach and passing game coordinator. since he's not currently a play caller again, I think you maybe get a couple years out of that. And then the other names that have funneled through, Kevin O'Connell, who's the Rams offensive coordinator, again, doesn't currently call plays. Kevin Patullo, who's the Eagles passing game coordinator. He worked with Eberflus in Indianapolis. And then also Wes Phillips, who's the Rams passing game coordinator and tight end coach. He overlapped with Eberflus for 3 seasons previously. So I think if it sounds like, anyway, they're going to go the route of not getting like the hottest big name offensive coordinator that is one step away from a head coaching role. If they do this, they would be getting somebody who's sort of an up and comer, maybe never stepped into the role before, which obviously carries some risk. But I think the upside of that pairing with a young quarterback could work out really well. So I don't hate it from that defensive standpoint. There's always risk with hiring a first-time head coach. And I think the thing with all of these guys we're going to talk about, or we should be acknowledging, is we won't know shit about whether these guys are good for at least 3 years. And, you know, we look at Matt Nagy, for instance, okay? Offensive coach, right? Coached a Chiefs offense that was like the number one offense in the league and all this shit. His first year, Bears go 12-4. He wins Coach of the Year, and it's like everyone's excited, and it has been just a straight right, exactly. So it's like I think we get too caught up in the fact that Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur and all these guys were these young offensive minds, and the game is shifting to that offensive side. But hell, like we were very close to having Mike Vrabel in the conference championship situation. We could have had Sean McDermott in the conference championship situation. And obviously you named Bill Belichick earlier, defensive coach, John Harbaugh, special teams coach. Like a lot of the really good coaches in this league are not offensive minded guys. I think just getting somebody, like you said, who can command the room is a big thing. So we'll ultimately see how it plays out. But I thought it was definitely interesting. Ryan Poles' first move within 24 hours of, you know, being named general manager, goes out and gets a defensive coach that maybe caused a little bit of a stir. Well, it definitely has in the Chicagoland area. So interesting hires for sure.
I was a little surprised that you guys didn't hold out for Dayball, but with Toaster saying that like it's not necessarily good to have your quarterback guy be having to worry about a bunch of other stuff when you can have someone that focuses just on them. So yeah, I guess I'm a little off the Dayball because of what Toaster said, but I am a little surprised that he didn't go further in the in the race.
Well, and McVay's a savant too, right? Like the memory that he has, the recall that he has, it makes it easier to play essentially 2 positions, right? Head coach and offensive coordinator. That's something that's special to him and not very, widely available to the rest of the league.
Yeah, definitely. Look, at the end of the day, you look at all of these top guys. I mean, they're all outliers in some sense, right? Like think about every year, there's always how many coaching openings, and it's an inexact science, right? Like coaching or scouting coaches and executives is infinitely harder than it is scouting players. And, there's only a handful of them in the league. So why not take a swing at a first-time guy with upside like a Nathaniel Hackett, like a Matt Eberflus, and see what happens, right? Like, what's the point of a retread? Like, I understand the Dan Quinn thing, and he was a finalist or a pretty heavy favorite candidate in both these positions, as well as New York and Jacksonville, before ultimately staying in Dallas. I don't understand the Dan Quinn love personally. I mean, people point to his experience as the defensive coordinator of the Legion of Boom. Yeah, that's probably the most talented defense that was been assembled in the last 40 years. Yeah. And he leaves, he goes to Atlanta. When was he successful in Atlanta? With Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur on his staff, Matt Ryan as the MVP. They tanked as soon as they were gone. And then he shows up in Dallas and did a great job this year with that Dallas team, but they got exposed at the end of the year, right? Like the turnover thing, they were number one in takeaways this year. That's also very much it's not stable.
Yeah.
Yeah, year to year, exactly. You would always expect a regression there. And his thing, again, coming from that Legion of Boom defense, his thing is that single high, middle field close, so cover one, cover three, which it has its benefits, but is in today's NFL, if you can't play too high, like you're gonna get exposed at some point, right? So I never understood the Dan Quinn thing, and it's like, why do we continue to roll these retreads out? And I get he's still relatively young. I mean, him and Matt Eberflus are the same age; they're 51, which surprised me to hear.
Dan Quinn doesn't look as good as Eberflus. Okay.
No, Dan Quinn looks like a much rougher 51, and I know he only had that one stop in Atlanta, but his final 3 years in Atlanta, they had a 4+ game losing streak in each one of those years. Why are we still giving these kind of guys opportunities? It doesn't make sense to me. It's different than a Flores, where a Flores, he'd be technically a retread, but it was 3 years in Miami. He was, did very well by all accounts.
2 years of overperforming and 1 year of apparently subpar, but also had a 7-game win streak in a subpar year.
Right, exactly. And obviously clashed with management, which is why he was available. And he's 36 years old, or however, he's young as hell. So it's just, I don't understand until we get past this like retread bullshit with NFL head coaches. We do the same thing with quarterbacks, right? Like, why do yeah, I think that's a little different. But like, we look at PJ Walker, right? Taylor Heineke, Tyler Huntley. I almost pulled the U there, Toaster. But Tyler Huntley, and it's like these guys should be getting opportunities over fucking Mike Glennon. Like there's zero reason a Mike Glennon should be on a roster. And the NFL is just so into this retread shit. So I'm glad to see from both the Broncos and the Bears perspective that they went with somebody new, and it may not work out, but we won't really know for a few years here. So I like both of those hires ultimately for various reasons.
Well, speaking about retreads, that makes me even more excited to find out where Brian Daboll is going to go. So we can see Trubisky again. And when we talk about coaches evaluating executives, I think Sean Payton did that this year and found out that Mickey Loomis might have bit off a little bit more than he can chew, and he's just going to take a little sabbatical while they get that cap situation in hand. Although I was excited to see him go to the Cowboys. It sounds like Jerry Jones is all in on Mike McCarthy, and great news for the NFC East that they're through with McCarthy.
Well, my understanding with the Dan Quinn situation too is potentially he was offered a lot of money by Jerry Jones to stay with the agreement essentially that he will take over for McCarthy next year or whenever it is. And Jerry throws around a lot of money, and who knows what he was getting offered as a head coach in some of these other spots. But so I don't know. Maybe they move on to Dan Quinn. I'm a little surprised by some of that, just because I thought Kellen Moore would maybe be the natural successor there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out for Dallas. It definitely is interesting. And again, fuck Mike McCarthy. Why?
I think Quinn's in a situation, though, where he doesn't want to go to another team that's not going to be competitive, right? He needs to rebuild his rapport. And if he goes to a Jacksonville, a Giants, and he's going to be on a best case 7-win team, what does that do for his career long term, right? And I think that he evaluated those situations. He said, short of, maybe the Vikings are right there. I don't think that he was in consideration for the Raiders. There just was an opportunity for him to rebuild his resume as a head coach, and thought that, yep, I've got the best chance of winning a Super Bowl back here with the Dallas Cowboys, even though I do think that defense is going to regress pretty considerably next year based on what they were able to do. We give a lot of shit to PFF, but I do give them credit for not overgrading things like interceptions. So like Trayvon Diggs was not one of the top tier cornerbacks per PFF grades because they said essentially this is a crapshoot that you're actually able to get the interception, right? It's more about the coverage, the situations that you're putting yourself in, and you get burned more often than not. Yes, turnovers are very valuable, but they're not consistent.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I feel like we need to start transitioning to the games, but there are a couple other coaching updates here. The Raiders are interviewing Josh McDaniels, and it sounds like they're progressing pretty quickly there, potentially. Although with McDaniels, we should probably not assume anything until he's, he's sitting in his chair in his office. So we'll see what happens there. And then the Jags apparently are pushing quite hard now for Brian Leftwich, who is pushing quite hard for Trent Baalke to get the fuck out of there. And it sounds like he might be bringing Adrian Wilson, former Cardinals safety, with him as his general manager. So a lot going on there.
Fight Trent Baalke, because that would be something I'd pay for.
Oh, hell yeah. Pay-per-view for that. That would be awesome. Although, I mean, I don't really want to pay to see a man die. Adrian Wilson is, I mean, if you don't remember Adrian from his playing days, like 6'8", brick shit house, like he just killed people. It was great. Yeah.
So I do have one thing for you guys. You guys mentioned McDaniels and the Raiders. Brandon Marshall had an interview yesterday with the Pardon My Take guys, and he said some very, very interesting things about Josh McDaniels. Me personally, I hate the guy because of how much he just dismantled that entire team, though you could argue without him going for Tebow and dismantling all that.
Playoff game with Tebow? I mean,
Demaryius Thomas won a playoff game. Rest in peace. Thank you for that game. But there's always the joke that you had to kill the virgin to get Peyton Manning. So they killed Tim Tebow to get Peyton Manning. But Brandon Marshall said in the interview that the most prepared coach that he ever played with was Josh McDaniels. He said he had us prepared inside and out for every situation, every game. He said there were so many times that you could go up to him during a situation and you'd be like, hey, man, it's 3rd and 7. What are they going to run? And he would legit just look back at him and be like, there's a 50% chance they're going to run a cover 0 on this play. And he's like, and he was usually right. And so he like had, what's up?
Kickoff, squib kick. Okay. Good job, Josh.
But like, I was shocked that he had such a high praise for him, considering that he kind of drove him out of Denver. And so the fact that a guy like Brandon Marshall has such high praise for him, I was very surprised about. He also said that Mark Trestman was ahead of his time and didn't get a fair shot in Chicago, which I thought was interesting.
I don't know about that. We don't have to go down the Trestman train, but the McDaniel situation doesn't really surprise me, honestly. Like his failures were interpersonal ultimately.
And that's what he had mentioned too, it was his ego that hurt the situation.
Yeah, it got in his way. He was young. And then we obviously know the Indy situation a few years ago was just a bad look all around. But the guy obviously knows his shit. He wouldn't be, with Belichick for as long as he has running that offense if he didn't know what he was doing. So that honestly doesn't shock me too much. The most shocking part is that Brandon Marshall, like you said, was willing to shower him with praise considering how their relationship ended. Yeah.
All right. So we have football still?
Yeah, there's football. There is football. So we all went 2-2 last week. So yay us.
I'm just saying, I'm feeling it this week. I don't want to jinx myself, but something feels like my odds have like quadrupled from like 7.5% on my parlay pick to 47.5% on my parlay pick.
Yeah, I think that math checks out. If one of us doesn't nail a 2-game parlay this week, anyway.
I guess mathematically we need to get a Jeezy, get in here.
The trifecta. Yeah. All right. Bengals at Chiefs. I don't know about you guys. I was shocked that this was a 7.5 point line. I was thinking maybe something more like 5.5. So I don't really. This one, I know Vegas is, or Chiefs have been Vegas darlings, but I don't love this line mostly because I can't bring myself to bet against the Chiefs. And every extra point that they get above what I think they should be getting worries me, or giving anyway. Sorry, worries me. I just don't think. I know the Bengals defense has played well. I just don't think they can keep up with the Chiefs. And based on what the Chiefs did to the Bills last week, I love Joe Burr, and Joe Shiesty we trust. And I really hope that he can pull this one out because it'd be a really cool story. But the Chiefs are hosting their fourth straight AFC championship game for a reason. And I think they're clicking right now. So I've got to go Chiefs, even though it's -7.5, and I don't love that.
I'm in the exact same boat as you, but more naive than you, in that I don't truly believe the Bengals are not the better team. I think
Right.
everybody can get behind that.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have found their way a little bit now that they're clicking in the second half. It scares me a little bit more. If you go back to that Bengals game, though, Chiefs only scored 3 points in the second half. And I don't think that that's an indicator of what the Bengals defense is going to be able to do again. I'm just not as convinced that the Chiefs can play a full game, and be that at the front end, the back end, whatever, at 7.5, the backdoor cover is available to you. And the Bengals, to me, are going out there playing with house money. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
You have Joe Burr, who they've been praising him the last game. His headset went out and he just started calling his own damn plays. He's out there having fun. And if he can do that, play loose, Jamar Chase against that secondary for the Chiefs, it's a mismatch, quite frankly. So if they can get Jamar Chase the ball, then they're going to have to double cover, find some sort of way to shut him down, and then you still have T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and
Tyler Boyd.
Like there's enough firepower on that offense. The main fear for me is, can they not sack him 9 times? And Frank Clark, and just he hasn't been the same guy. So I'm going to take the points here. I think that it can be fun, and I think we all know where I'm ultimately rooting for, but believing that the Chiefs are going to lose this game is tough for me.
Yeah,
I just
I'm
think
with you.
they can keep it close. Intern?
Yeah.
I love the Bengals here. The fact that they're getting a touchdown, I think it's going to be a close game. There's something about Burrow's magic. It seems like you're playing with house money, but you're also now have a blueprint on what you can do based on what the Bills did last week. I think if it was just, I'm doing not blueprint, but like I know it's a stretch, but hear me out. The fact that it was Gabriel Davis that popped off, I think you can build off that. If it was just Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs the whole game, then you might be able to be like, okay, well, if we just shut down Jamar Chase, we'll be okay. But the fact that they were able to exploit other areas of that team in my opinion,
Matthew, to be fair, like Matthew went out in the first 2-3 plays of the game.
True. I just think, you put this up for debate for you guys, but I think the Bengals have a better receiving core overall than the Bills. And if the Bills did what they did to the Chiefs, I think that could be dangerous. And Jamar Chase clearly shows that he can get it done.
I got a question for you, J-Rob. Mm-hmm. Are the Bengals going to trade for Josh Allen before the game starts this week? Or because that to me is not replicable necessarily.
No, and I'm not saying replicable, but I just think
that way real quick, J-Rob. I was going to go the Bills offensive line versus the Bengals offensive line are also night and day. So you're taking very talented quarterback and much better protection, and now you're throwing 9 sacks and you win a game. That's why I'm on him. I'm like, dude's invincible. To be able to get up after the beating he took last week, dude just wants to get it done. And 7.5 is a lot.
Yeah, I like it. I know I'm probably talking crazy, but I do believe they have a better receiving core, and I think it's going to be a close game. And for what it's worth, like, I know these are playoff caliber teams. I know the Chiefs have been here before. Last week was an anomaly. That is an exhausting game. That is an emotional roller coaster. I know you have a week to prepare, but that could have some carryover. And on the other side of it, you have dudes who don't give a fuck. Like you were saying, playing with house money. If the Bengals could jump on them early, which isn't out of the question with the big playability, this game could, stay close. And I think it does stay close.
Chiefs
All right.
barely over 500 against the spread. Bengals are 12-7. So I think that this is definitely a number. If it was less than 7, then I'm with you all day that I'm trying to protect my investment and saying, okay, the Chiefs can pull this out. But when you're at a number that high and the Chiefs just haven't blown a lot of teams away this year, I'm taking the points.
Yeah, that totally tracks. I can't argue with that point, to be fair. Something about it just feels like it just feels, I would feel dumb if I picked against the Chiefs with how their offense is playing and picked against Patrick Mahomes at this point. So I did it last week and it burned me. So I'm not going to do it 2 weeks in a row.
Is it just me, or does this game feel like it's going to be really, really, really close, like a last second play, or just like a 48-6, just like smashing that the Chiefs give to the Bengals?
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like there's going to be an in between.
No, totally. I mean, it could be that moment where it's like the shoe drops, right, for the Bengals, and it's over. I'm rooting for them. Don't get me wrong. I'm 100% rooting for them here. The Chiefs are just kind of like the evil empire, man. They're just continue to trudge along right now. So, all right. So you two are on the Bengals, and I am on the Chiefs. I like that.
Gosh, looking back at these games, like demolishing the Raiders twice and demolishing the Pittsburgh Steelers twice. Like there's a lot of fluff that goes into this. We'll call it Eberfluff, I think. That'll be my favorite term for any Bears fans out there. But yeah, 41-14 against the Raiders, 48-9 against the Raiders, and then 42-21 against the Steelers, and 36-10 against the Steelers. Like those are games that just kind of skew the data in favor of that offense that I'm not getting behind, because I don't think for some reason they matched up very well against the Raiders this year. And RIP Ben Roethlisberger, appreciate your retirement, and now we can move on to something else.
Yeah. All right. 49ers at Rams. This will be the third matchup of these teams this year. The 49ers won both regular season matchups, and the Niners also won last week despite Jimmy G playing like absolute dog shit in Lambeau. This game's going to be about a 50-50 split fan-wise from what we're hearing in SoFi. So no true home field advantage for the Rams here. Toaster, I am legitimately on the fence with this one, so I'm going to let you pick first here and tell me why.
I've got a bold prediction.
Okay.
And I don't think that you guys are necessarily going to be on board with this.
Okay.
But I think Jimmy G is going to throw a touchdown pass. And that's bad news
so they're going to lose
for the 49ers. Yeah. So the 49ers are Jimmy G is 10-1 when he doesn't throw a touchdown pass in the playoffs. I think the only loss was the Super Bowl against it was a divisional game. And when he does throw a touchdown in the playoffs, he's 1-1. So I think he's gonna throw a touchdown pass, and the Rams are just gonna run train on the 49ers at this point. I think that they've seen enough. They were up 17-0. They've learned what they need to do. They're just so much more explosive, and quite frankly, the NFL, I don't want to get 10 hat on this, but the NFL wants them to win, because Chiefs versus Rams, even Bengals versus Rams, is far more enticing to them than that 13-3 Super Bowl that there was between the Patriots and the Rams way back when, right? Which is essentially where the 49ers are right now. So I'm going to say that the Rams are going to be able to run away with this one, not handily, but by a touchdown plus.
Oh man, I all of that makes so much sense, and I feel that like this could be just a blowout, but I can't get away from the 49ers right now. Like they just continue to play tough, and if they were, I mean, 3.5 is like right there where it's not quite as many points as I maybe would have wanted, picking the Niners as an underdog here, but they're a tough ass team and they somehow continue to win these games. I just don't get it. And it, it's one thing like last week in Green Bay, right? They were what, a 6-point dog? Does that sound right to you guys? When we picked, and I had a zero,
All right,
like,
yes, they were. I know because I picked the Packers to win by 6 points.
okay. So they were a 6-point dog last week, and I thought, like, okay, I don't think there's any way they win this game on the road, but they can cover 6 points, like with how they're playing. And then sure as shit, they go out and, give it to Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, which I got to tell you, maybe I'm just riding high from that feeling. I can't get past the fact that the 49ers gave me my most satisfaction from a football game that I've gotten all year from any team. But I'm just, there's some magic, and I just can't. I don't know. Jimmy G doesn't throw any touchdowns. This is my prediction. No touchdowns, and they win. So 49ers, I'm going 49ers plus 3.5 here. So we're split. J-Rob, where are you going?
So I've dogged on the Niners pretty much all year. Called them frauds. So I don't know if this is like reverse psychology, but I'm going with the Niners. I think I think they just do so much misdirection that it can help litigate some of that pass rush. They're not really a heavy drop back team. There's a lot of motion going on, so that can kind of keep Von Miller from just pinning his ears and going after Jimmy. The Rams line is nasty though, but I mean, is it safe to say that Mike Shanahan is Sean McVay's daddy? Like he owns him. He's 0-6, or McVay's 0-6 against him. And I think that will prevail. I think there's something to be said about having 6 wins, especially with kind of the turnover of roster that Shanahan's had and McVay's had. So like they've had different roster looks and they still can't get it done. That I think Shanahan maybe hasn't figured out a little bit. And I do think the Rams win this game, but I think the Niners cover. I think the Niners cover and keep this game to a field goal or less.
All right. I love it. I mean, the fact that, my first thought in sort of researching this matchup was, okay, how did the 2 regular season matchups go? Like, I didn't remember. And I went back and looked at them and saw the Niners won handily the first game and then ended up winning the second one in overtime. I mean, I would have bet my house that it was at least a split in the regular season. And I know we joke about, beating a team 3 times is hard. And it is. But yeah, man, it's like
last year. Yeah.
right. But Shanny does seem to have something over McVay. And I don't know if you guys saw, but McVay was asked about it, asked if Kyle Shanahan was in his head, and he just said no, like very matter of factly. I don't know if that's a good thing for the Rams. Like maybe it gives them a little extra motivation, gives McVay a little extra motivation, or if it truly shows that he is in his head and he's frustrated by it. So we'll see. I'm excited though for this game. I think over the Chiefs and Bengals, and obviously the line being a lot closer reflects that as well. But all right, so me and J-Rob are on the Niners plus 3.5, and Toaster, you got the Rams.
So what's the only scenario where we get messed up here? I think we think we got everything covered, right?
Yeah, I took both dogs.
Yep.
There's no parlay situation where we can't lose here. There's still one.
No, there is.
What? It's Bengals Rams.
Somebody takes Chiefs and Rams. Yeah.
Chiefs. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chiefs and Rams fucks us.
We'll give GZ Chiefs Rams, and he's gonna fucking win, and he's gonna want to be, promoted to senior intern analyst.
Yeah.
That's
Josh,
only
I
plus
do
102 odds on that. That's awful.
on Chiefs Rams.
Yep. That's what you'd get.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking against the spread here, though. The funny storylines for me coming out of this game are, I don't think that there's anything Jimmy G can do to increase his trade value for the 49ers. Are we all in agreement on that? Like, I mean, if he absolutely balls out, possibly, but there's been so much tape where he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 4 of his games in the postseason. But D'Amico Ryans is the big one for me. If he's able to stop this Rams offense, I think he's got a head coaching job locked up and great for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot on the line, honestly, for the Niners. You talked about Mike McDaniel earlier, and we talked about him relation to the Bears, but I think he's a hot candidate to potentially snag an OC job in a bunch of different places, So there's a lot going on there, and this could be the end of the Jimmy G era in San Francisco. So we'll see how it plays out for sure. But
there's not a lot of air in the era from Jimmy G. That's the problem.
Hey,
there's a lot of error, but
there is a lot of error. Look, Jimmy G is such a fucking anomaly in that somehow he's made 2 NFC championship games, went to a Super Bowl. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Oh, you know what I saw? Somebody posted this during the Packers-Niners game last week, but they said Jimmy G legitimately did you guys watch 30 Rock? Yes.
Yeah, 30 Rock from the Sun.
No. John Hamm plays a character in that show where he's just like this super good looking guy and everything good happens to him and he doesn't understand when like bad things happen to him because he's so used to it. That's Jimmy G's life. He's literally playing out this idea of like he's just super good looking, everyone loves him. He's like doesn't understand. Yes, he just doesn't understand how bad things happen to people because he's never experienced it himself. So, Jimmy G, more power to you, dude. He said fuck the Packers after the win because he grew up a Bears fan. Love that. So I'm all on the Niners and the Jimmy G train, I think, for this game.
This just popped in my head. Is Jimmy G our modern day Mark Sanchez?
I think he's a little better than the Sanchez was.
But I mean, 2 AFC championships.
The bar is low. The bar is low. But yeah, that is
Mark Sanchez comp.
that is a good.
It's not a butt fumble anymore. What is it now?
Oh, I don't know.
They don't call it the butt fumble.
You told me it was. Anyways, not important anymore.
Bad radio. Yeah.
Thought you would remember. You were so happy about it when it happened. So
I'm scrolling back
plays where somebody ran into somebody else and it wasn't the butt fumble anymore. It was like the backside takedown or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't find it. There's no way I would remember that.
Don't worry about it.
We'll find it later. All right. Well, anything else on these games before we wrap up, guys?
All right, let's hedge our bets.
If you're hedging, you just take home teams. But
the Rams could be so last year the Bucs were the first team to ever play a Super Bowl in their home stadium. The Rams can try to one-up them now and play both the conference championship and the Super Bowl in their home stadium.
It'd be pretty damn cool for sure. I'd be on board with that.
For some reason, there will still be more 49ers fans than Rams fans at the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's a shame. You build this beautiful stadium, and in one of them, we've got terrible windows and sunshine, and then in this one, you can't get a home field advantage no matter what. So
I think it's because San Fran's stadium is actually closer, like all the fans are actually closer to Los Angeles than they are to Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
Yeah, they built that out and nobody wants to drive to anymore. So, and I think we talked about the windows, but the sun in Santa Clara, the heat in Santa Clara is not a fun viewing experience for those late afternoon games.
So why not go to LA, right? Check out SoFi. All right. Well, that will do it for us, everybody. Thanks for listening. Here's to hoping that all of your bets cash, and we all enjoy championship week. I'm hoping one of us, at least one of us will enjoy it this week. So we'll see. But
I guarantee 2 weeks from now, one of us is going to hit the parlay.
Well, how are you going to do that? What if we all pick the same team?
We'll get Cheesy back in.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. That'll do it. And we will catch you later.